So today we'll be discussing about webinar series 4 steps to lodgement. Step 1, data loading. My name is Zarna Tanna, and with me we have Helen Wong, Garima Suba, and Yao Dong, who will be assisting you in answering any questions you raise in the webinar Q&A function. We aim to answer all your questions that you raised today. However, if any being missed, the webinar slide deck and the Q&A summary will be forwarded to all the registrants in the next few days. And the webinar link will also be available in the link below. So all the details should be available in the class education page. So please kindly note that any information which is shared through this webinar is not to be treated as financial, investment, and tax advice. Please consult qualified practitioners, brokers, fund auditors, or conduct your own research around scenarios involving complexity. The webinar is prepared and presented to make class processing experience seamless. The best practice of processing a fund in class are these 11 steps that would have been mentioned to you by the consulting team when you first onboarded to class. So what we have done is we've grouped these 11 steps into 4 steps. That is step 1, data loading. Step 2, transaction processing and reconciliation. Step 3, reconciliation and reporting. Step 4, year-end lodgement. And our focus for today would be data loading. And the agenda would be to discuss on various options on how to set up a fund in class, how you could create investment accounts, to set up feeds, whether that is a cash, broker, or a wrap fee, how to load manual cash transactions, looking into the contribution standards, whether it's contribution and rollovers, processing of buys and sell of investments, an overview of corporate action and generate income and the browse event screen. Please note, any words underlined in the slide deck are linked to class knowledge base articles for the relevant topic. So what are the various options you could think of in setting up a fund in class? Option number 1 is new fund visit. This functionality is mainly used for a brand new entity when you have no opening balance. However, you can still use this functionality of an existing entity with very few investments in the opening balance. Let's have a quick look of a demo in regards to how you could set up a fund using this functionality. So if this is your business level, this is our test business environment. You go to the business, new fund visit, select the relevant brand that you would like to load the fund under, click here, and basically this is going to take you to all the steps for filling in the details of the member as well as the fund, and click send button to load the fund in class. You can save as many applications if you like. So say for instance, if you started setting up a fund through this functionality and you have any missing information of a fund or a member details, all the applications could be saved and completed at a later stage. So if you click on the saved application link above, it's going to give you a list of all the saved applications. And to complete it, you click on the saved application and you will see that all the details have been pre-filled. So for instance, if there's any details, any field missing, which is mandatory, all the fields here, which is marked in red and exclamatory mark, or all the mandatory fields. So once it's been filled, the system will allow you to load the fund in class. You click next, step 2, step 3, step 4, ensure all the details are correct. Next, and this is the step 5 where you have an option to save or send. Sending would load the fund in class into your business level into the relevant brand. So let's click on send. And you get a confirmation that the new fund visit Feb fund was successfully created. So if you go back to our business level and refresh the screen, and if I select the relevant brand that I loaded the fund under, the fund is now available that as is new fund visit Feb. If I click on the fund, basically this fund has only the fund details and the member details. And if you look into the opening balances, it's all empty because all you have done is loaded only the fund details along with the member details. So say for instance, if you have an existing entity with an opening balance, you would have to manually create investment accounts, any pension accounts, if there were any pensions in the members, and then manually fill in all the details in the load opening position here. If if your business has logged in, if you have signed up for a Now Infinity software and you use the Now Infinity software to establish the entity, you have an option to add the fund to class directly. So in this case, if you are logged into Now Infinity, if you've set up a newly established fund, you will have an option add to class, and it will pop up for you to enter any basic details like the title of the members, if the fund is registered for GST or not, and just to enter the fund code and the brand code that you would like to load the fund under, and just hit on add to class. And that's also going to load your fund similar to the new fund wizard functionality from your Now Infinity software. Option number two is if you are taking on a fund from a previous accountant who used class software, you could request them for a fund transfer data file report, which is usually the last close financial year. So if you go back to the fund level, say for instance, this is the fund that the previous accountant is trying to give you the fund transfer data file, they would go to reports, run report, and you would search for fund transfer data file. And basically it will, once you run this report, so in this case, fund transfer data file, once you run the report, basically it is going to download a zip file. So let's have a look into an example on how the file could be provided to you by the previous accountant, and it's going to appear in a zip folder as this. If you simply open the zip folder and open the file, many a times you would see that the file is incomplete and there are no details available in here. So we do get a lot of support requests saying that I've opened this fund transfer data file provided by my previous accountant and it's all empty. And there are macros which are disabled as well. So we will look into step-by-step instructions on how to extract the zip folder correctly. So we go back to the file. So the first step is opening the file. So you right click on the file where it was initially downloaded. You click on extract all, extract in the relevant location. So it's located in here. So you will see the difference between the zip file and the extracted file. When you open the extracted file, you will see there are two Excel files. One is an Excel loader. Excel loader will detail you all the fund details along with the opening balances. So when you load this Excel loader file, it's going to load a fund as well as the opening balances in your relevant business. Excel transaction loader will detail all the transactions that the previous accountant has processed in the current open financial year. So you also have an option in loading the transactions which is processed by the previous accountant. So let's have a look. Before you open the Excel loader, you will right click on the loader, go to properties. On the bottom right corner, there's an option to unblock and click OK. So basically this step is going to enable all the macros. And now when you open the file, there will be an option for you to click on enable editing. And once that's been clicked, all the details will populate and all the details will fill in here, which is processed by the previous accountant. So this is the overview tab on how it's going to look like. All the details that are filled in correctly is going to show you as complete and in green in color. If anything is being missed or incomplete field data, then it is going to show as incomplete and red in color in the overview tab, and it's going to prompt you to go to the relevant tab and fill in the details correctly. So in this case, you will be able to see that the fund details is incomplete. So if I go to my fund tab, all the cells in red color are mandatory fields, and any cells in the green color are non-mandatory fields. So for instance, if I started entering any details in this fund particular tab, I need to ensure that all the pink color cells are mandatory filled in. So in your case, in my case over here, the brand code. So we look into our business level to search where the brand code is. So to see if the brand code, you will need to go to the business level. You go to settings, brand details. Select the relevant brand that you would like to load the fund under, and here is the code and the name. So many at times your code and your name could be different depending on how you have set up the brand. So in my case, it's ZT. So I go back to the loader and enter ZT. So please note this is not a case sensitive. So whether you enter a capital letter or a smaller lowercase letter, it should be fine. You go to the overview tab and now you will see the data is complete. So basically what your loader will show you all the fund tab, your corporate trustee structure tab, if there is any corporate trustee. So you will see that the pink color cell is not filled in. So that means if there was no corporate trustee structure in this case, you can leave it as empty. If there's any non-member trustee fund, it's empty. It will detail you any members that were there in the fund, any pension accounts that the member had created, any other investment accounts. You will click on relevant tabs and you will see all these tabs have been filled in, which were completed by the previous accountant as at the closing balance of the closed financial year. So all you would have to do is ensure that all the details are validated and completed and showing in green color. You click on change business and brand codes. By default, this business code and brand code would be the previous accountants. So you would have to change this to your business code. So if we go back to our business level to see where your business code is, if you click on the home icon on the top left corner, which will take you to the business level. So basically, below the business name, you see a hashtag, and here is the code of the business. So you would copy that and come back to your loader and paste it. And the brand code, again, as I mentioned to you, it would be under the settings. And I remember my brand code, so I've just entered in here. Now you would have an option to submit fund details. When you click on submit fund details, it will give you a pop-up message with click to get your upload code. You click on get upload code. And for the first time that you're trying to load this loader, it is going to ask you to put in your login credentials for class. You enter the authenticator code as you usually do when you log into class first. If you click on remember this device for 24 hours, and if you have as many loaders during the day to load, so if you click on remember this device for 24 hours, it will not prompt you to enter all your login credentials again. Please note this upload code is going to be valid for 15 minutes. So you copy the upload code, come back to the loader, paste, and click to continue. What this option is going to do is going to create a fund in your business level, also create the member accounts of any pension accounts that were created in the loader, and also all the investment accounts that were entered in the investment tab. It's going to create all these accounts automatically in your fund. You get this option, data for fund, take on fund was successfully loaded. So the name of the fund was take on fund. You go to the business level to check whether this was loaded successfully. You refresh the screen and here is a take on fund. So let's have a look into the fund of what the submit fund details has done. So you go to fund details, and you'll be able to find all the relevant details of the fund is completed. If you go to fund load opening balances, all the bank accounts, your security accounts are automatically created. So if there are any property accounts or collectible items or any other investments added in the loader, it will all be created automatically by the system. You go back to the loader, the next option for you is to click on Submit Opening Balances. This is going to enter all your opening balances into the relevant investments that was created in the first step. And we get this option, data for fund was successfully loaded. Click OK. Come back to the loader. We look into the fund, we refresh the screen, and you will see the market value as well as the cost space are all filled in automatically. So even if you click on edit parcel history, so if any history parcels were recorded, just check the original CGT date. All the dates will be automatically pre-filled by the loader into the fund. If there were any T-bar records entered by the previous accountant, you also have an option to submit T-bar records. So this is this option number 2 in regards to how you could set up a fund via fund transfer data file if the previous accountant used class software. Option number 3 is to download an Excel fund loader template from the business level. This is mainly used if your previous accountant did not use class software and they have provided you a list of all the reports and you would like to load the fund with manually and filling all the investment details manually. So basically, this is utilized for not a brand new entity and when you have opening balances in the fund. If the fund is added via new fund visit, you also have an option to use an Excel fund loader template to record for any opening balances. Let's have a look in regards to how you could download the template is by going to the business level by clicking on the home icon. You go to business, Excel fund loader, select the relevant brand that you would like to load the fund and click here. So what this is going to do is going to download an Excel loader template. So if you go to your downloads file, it's important again to enable the macros. So you right click on the file, click on properties, unblock and click OK, and then open the loader. So now when you click on enable editing, is basically now you will be able to fill in all the details of the fund details, corporate trustee details, member details, cash, investments, and so on. Again, it's similar to how I explained in regards to the fund transfer data file. So all the colors in dark pink color is a mandatory field and any green color is non-mandatory. If you believe that there is any missing information, it's not necessary or not compulsory for you to enter the fields now when you're loading the fund via loader. You also have an option once the fund is loaded, you can also manually change the opening balances at a later stage when you have the relevant information. Please note, when you're copy pasting any information into this loader, please copy via values or text because behind each cells or behind most of these cells, there would be conditional formatting. If you do not copy and paste correctly, sometimes the cell could go white in color from green or from pink color. If it goes white, this means that the loader could have been broken. And in such scenario, you would have to re-download a new template and fill in the details correctly. Once all the details have been populated from the reports you received from the previous accountant, you would click on Submit Fund Details and submit opening balances similar to the steps what we have discussed earlier. But before you load, please ensure you click on Change and Business and Brand Codes, and it is to be entered into your current business code and brand code. Option number 4 is the transition management system. We do have a transitions team who will assist you in loading the entities as well as the opening balances. But please note this option would incur additional fees. So you could refer to your contract agreement with class. Most likely, this option could be most beneficial for you when there is high volume of entities and opening balances to enter. And here is the 8-minute video link you could view at a later stage on how to use the transition management system service. Once all your fund accounts are created, the next step would be to create an investment account. So basically, if it's a newly established entity, you would have to set up a new bank account and all the investment accounts manually via the new fund visit after the fund is loaded into your business. If the fund is invested under a broker or a wrap account, then by default, all the securities will be created automatically as and when the transactions occur. If there is no data feed set up, or if the fund is not invested via a broker or a wrap, then in those scenarios, the investment accounts need to be manually activated in the fund level. If the fund was loaded via Excel fund loader, like how we discussed earlier, all the investment accounts will be automatically activated once they are entered in the investment tabs. Let's have a quick look in regards to how you could manually activate any investment accounts at the fund level. So I would go to a relevant fund. You go to investments. To set up a bank account, you would have two options by going to investments, go to bank account, fill in all the details, and there is an option for you to set up the authority or an automated data feed straight away from this screen, and you can activate the bank account. Second option is also you can set up the bank account by going to feeds console or new cash data feed. And through this as well, it's going to take you to the same screen of the bank account enter the details of the bank account and activate. Now, if you're adding a bank account and if this bank account is a foreign, you still have an option to click yes, select the relevant currency, relevant cash tax treatment, and activate the account. But please note, once your bank account is treated or is activated as a foreign, you will not be able to edit the bank account and change it to an AUD currency value. You would, in those cases, you will have to delete the foreign bank account and activate the bank account again in the AUD currency. To activate any term deposit or collectibles, it's pretty straightforward. You would click on each item, enter all the relevant details of the investment, and activate. To activate an investment account, you click on investment account. The security issue is a very important factor here. So basically, if the fund has invested in any listed security or a managed fund market, it is important for you to use the original security code, which is listed in the ASX or the IRIS data. So for instance, if the fund has invested under a listed security, which is BHP, you search for BHP and you select the relevant code that is listed in the ASX. By default, all the details of the classification will automatically be populated, so you don't have to manually enter any details. If the fund has invested in a managed fund market, say for instance MGE001 as an example, Magellan Infrastructure, and it's showing that this is a managed fund market, you select the relevant APIR code and all the details will be populated accordingly. What the automation would happen is if you select the relevant original security issue code for ASX and managed fund market, the system will automatically update the prices for corporate actions as well as any asset allocations or generate income functionality announcements. So it's highly recommended to use the relevant security issue code. If your fund has invested in unlisted security, say for example, it's PQR as an example, it's not appearing in one of the lists below. You also have an option to create the security issue, enter the relevant details, save and activate the account. If this is a foreign market, say for instance, if you have invested in Disney, and if this is a foreign market, you have an option to include yes, and any foreign markets that is supported by class will automatically appear when you search the investment account, select the relevant company and activate the account. Now, for an example, if you have an unlisted security, which is invested in multiple funds under your class business, so say for instance, if there is a investment made in gold bar, you can have an option by going to the business level, create the security at the business level by going to investments, new security, enter the common code and save. So what this would do is into any entity that you're processing the investments or processing any buys and sells, that investment account will appear into your fund level. So what I have done is created an account which is an XYZ account as an unlisted security at the business level. And what it would do is if I go to investments, investment account, and search for XYZ, it is appearing as a user created account on the right hand side. So this means if it's showing as the market as user, this means you have manually gone into the business level investments, new security, and added this investment account. So this is how you could create an investment account. Now, for a bank account, if you would like to process any transactions, you would go to transactions, browse bank statements, and select the relevant bank accounts and add the transactions. To add a property account, it is pretty straightforward again. You would click on the property, enter all the relevant details of the property, and activate the account. Our main focus of today would be a custom holding account. So basically, what is a custom holding account? It is a very flexible account, as the name suggests. If you believe that these investments do not fit into any structure of defined security issue types listed in here, you could consider to set this up as a custom holding account. This account is a non-unitized investment account. That means you could have only one quantity. And entering transactions into this account will be similar to a bank account. So again, it will appear in the transactions, browse bank statements, and it should appear in one of the below drop-down list once the account has been created. To record for any prices or any valuation for accounting gains and losses or expenses or any income to be allocated to this account, it would be manually and it's not going to be calculated automatically by the system. Let's have a look in regards to how you could distinguish between if the investment account is set up as an investment account or a custom holding account. So if we go to investments, browse holding account screen, and this is going to give you an overview of all the investment accounts that you have activated. For instance, if you click on the Macquarie CMA, the URL suggests that this is activated as a bank account. If I go back to my screen, and if you click on any one of the investment that is listed securities market, it would suggest that this was set up as an investment account. If this was set up as a custom holding account, then the URL will suggest that this is a custom account. And that's how it's easy to distinguish between how the investment was set up. Now, in my case, you will see that the sundry debtors account was created as a custom account. And let's go back to transactions, browse bank statements to see how the transactions were recorded under this account. So you select the relevant account, that is sundry debtors in this case. Similar to bank account, you will be adding any cash ins or cash outs to process any buys or sell transactions. The closing balance of this account is going to be the cost base of this account. So in this case, the closing balance is 15,000. If we go back to the browse holding account screen, the cost base of this account is 15,000. So what are some examples in regarding using this account? So say, for instance, if you want to record for any sundry debtors or receivables, any sundry creditors or payables, or if the fund has invested in a wrap account, that means if they have a wrap account and underneath the wrap account, they have invested into various investments for acquisitions and disposals. You don't want to record for all of these acquisitions and disposals individually, and you would like to record this as a one-line asset item, then you could create a custom holding account and record only for the year-end transactions. Step-by-step instructions will be provided in the class knowledge base articles. And in your situation, if any of these fit into various situations for the one-line wrap account, step-by-step instructions will be provided in the class help guide here. If you want to record for any amortization of borrowing costs, or if the fund has invested in a livestock, say for example, a horse, and you do not want to set this up as an investment account, you could utilize the custom holding account to record for the investment. More details will be provided for processing purposes in the next training session. Now, once your investment accounts are created, the next would be to activate the feeds, whether this is for cash, broker, or a wrap feed. So what is a data feed? So basically, it is a process by which class would receive an electronic data from various organizations automatically. If you have a cash or bank account, so it is recommended to have the cash data feed set up. So what this would do is all the cash transactions will automatically feed through from the data provider into your fund level, into the bank account. If the fund has invested through a broker or a wrap fee, so it is recommended to activate a broker or a wrap feed that is supported by class, and this will allow you for any trade events to automatically feed through the broker or the wrap provider. We do have a help guide of data feeds overview. This guide is going to be your best friend if you would like to set up various feeds. So let's have a look into this guide. So it is going to detail you all the list of the institutional data feeds that class supports. So if you scroll down, here are all the list of the cash or the bank accounts for the cash feeds that could be set up into your fund level. An overview will be provided to you whether this supports any daily cash or it supports any account holders or if this supports any historic transactions or not. All the ones with green tick means that it is supported by class, and the ones with gray dash, this means that it's not supported by the provider. If you hover to the platform, tab, it's going to list you all the platform providers that class supports and the broker account as well. So let's have a look. If you click on any one of the bank account, it will detail you the configuration process and give you step-by-step instructions on how to set up the feed, as well as how to set up the account holder or whether this is going to be an advisor authority. Let's take an example of Macquarie Cash products. When I click on this link, it's going to give you a summary and how to set up the feed for this bank account and whether if you're using an account holder authority, what are the instructions? If this is an advisor authority, what are the steps you could take? So in our case, let's go back to the fund level. You go to investments, browse holding accounts, and I would like to set up a feed for Macquarie. You can either go to feeds console. Once your bank account is activated, all your bank feeds or the broker feeds will list here. So if I click on Macquarie feed, and this is the place if you select an account holder or a third party advisor authority and follow the steps as per the help guide. If you do not want to use this feed at a later stage, and say, for instance, if you would like to manually load the transactions, you can use this box and tick manually imported and save, and hence not using the feeds for this particular bank account. By setting up a feed, it is very important to ensure that you use the do not load data date if you have already processed a certain transactions up to a certain date. Now, say for instance, if the fund was loaded in class and for reconciliation process, you did not want to wait for the feeds to be set up and you have already manually filled in the data up to 31st of December 2022. Then in that case, what you would do is you would enter 1st of Jan 2023 in do not load before date so that if this feed provider supports any historic transactions, it will not feed in any cash transactions prior to this date. This is mainly to avoid any duplicate transactions. For a broker or a wrap feed, when you set up the feed, it is really important to follow the step-by-step instructions. And the main important thing for the broker or wrap is to link the investment accounts. So for a broker, you would have a bank account under the broker account. So it's important to link the holding account of the bank account as well, so that your cash transactions will feed through automatically. Here is the box that you could tick to link the individual holding accounts that are invested under this broker account. If you miss to link the relevant investment accounts, if they were created prior to setting up the feed, then what would happen is when the transactions incur and it's automatically fed through data feed, it is going to create a duplicate investment like ANZ with a suffix _1. To avoid any duplicate investment accounts, it's important to ensure that all these relevant holding accounts are linked before when you set up the feed. So in case if you have an issue with the duplicate setup, like duplicate investments, here is the help guide that you could view, and it will detail you step-by-step instructions on how to delete the relevant accounts. Once all your investment accounts are created, the next is to manually load cash transactions if no feed is set up. You have various options like copy and paste from Excel. So let's have a look into the demo. You go to transactions, browse bank statements to add any transactions, select the relevant brand, click on add, and you can enter here. It needs to be in a certain format. So for copying and pasting, you make sure that it's into a relevant date, description, cash out, and cash in format. So I have a file that you could copy the paste for demo purposes. You will see that it's in a certain format, date, description, cash out, cash in. Please note that any amount fields will be positive value and not a negative value. So once I copy the data, go back to the fund. You can either paste from spreadsheet, it's going to populate here, or you can also click on the date and paste it in this way and click on Save Transactions. What this is going to do, all your transactions are going to be pre-filled. The second option is uploading a CSV file. So when you upload a CSV, you would select the relevant bank account, click on Upload CSV, ensure you download the class upload template to ensure the relevant formatting is used to copy and paste the transactions. Choose the file, upload. And what this is going to do is, again, it's going to pre-fill all the transactions that were in the CSV file. You can click Save Transactions for it to appear. We also have a new functionality that is scan and save. For instance, if your client has provided you a bank statement in a PDF form, you can also upload a PDF file. Click on Upload PDF. So I would select the relevant brand first. So I would like to record these transactions into St. George. So click on Upload PDF. Choose the relevant PDF file of the bank statement you received and click Upload. And all the transactions should populate again for you to save it into using this functionality. Here are the transactions, and it will show you that there were 11 transactions in the statement from this period to this period, and saving transactions again would do this. You also have an option to manually enter cash transactions. In such manner, you could click on plus add and manually enter the date and all the details and save transactions. This could be reused in the last resort. So when you use the scan and save functionality, please note that this has only certain formats supported by class. And if you click on the help guide, it will detail you all the formattings that is supported by class, whether what the file size should be and whether or not it should be less than a few pages and all the columns that it supports. And if you go into the FAQ scan and save class guide, it is going to list you all the bank accounts that is supported via PDF file. And a very common bank account that is used is Macquarie for SMSF. Please note that bank statement is not supported. However, there is a transaction listing which is supported, and you can request your client to provide you the transaction listing instead. So once we've discussed about loading the cash transactions, the next would be the contribution standards. Now, to get money into an SMSF, whether this is a newly established entity or an existing entity, you would have common transactions such as contributions, whether they are employer, personal, or any other forms of contributions. Or the second would be by rolling over funds from an existing superannuation benefit to another super. These transactions are mandatory to be processed via SuperStream. Now, what SuperStream is basically is a digital process designed to simplify and speed up the process of your employer contributions as well as the rollovers by super funds. It requires all the funds to have a valid electronic service address. And we will discuss this in detail in the next slide. So for contribution standards for getting money into the fund as contributions, you could process this manually in the fund level. So if you go to the relevant fund, you go to transactions, member income, and contributions. Enter the details and submit. But our main focus for today would be mandated employer contributions. So if you have a newly established entity, you would have the members to be providing your ESA to their employers so that their employer can add it into their payroll and clearinghouse system to pay for the contributions into the SMSF. So a super stream is a mandatory requirement for all the employers to provide these contribution payments and the related data to the super funds electronically. So for this to happen, an electronic service address is really important. Any funds added into class is by default going to be using the SMSF data flow superstream provider, and this is free of cost and as a complimentary service provided by class. So if you see what is a class ESA, it is SMSF data flow. It was going to be one word and all in lowercase. Where you can find this ESA in class is by going to the fund level. You go to settings, integration settings, and the superstream provider is SMSF data flow by default. Or you can also check at the business level, go to settings, integration, and SMSF data flow. An alternate method to check what the superstream provider is by going to reports, run report, and you search for the report. Say, for instance, this would be ESA superstream. And when you run the report, it's basically going to detail you that the ESA for the relevant fund is SMSF data flow, all in one word. So you can provide this report to the employer's member so that they can add it into the clearinghouse system for the contributions to be paid through automatically. How to check if the employer mandated contributions are processed via superstream? So if we go back to the fund level, and if you have processed the transactions by going to transactions, member income, member contributions, you will be able to see these transactions as a business event. So if you go to transactions, business event, you'll be able to see that there were certain transactions processed for member contribution. If this is processed manually, the transactions is going to show as created by under the user email who has processed these transactions. If these contributions were auto-fed via ESA, via SuperStream, it's going to be showing as the created by automated feed, as mentioned here. An alternative method to check if this is processed via SuperStream is by downloading a contribution cap report. And to check the source is going to be SMSF data flow, which is going to indicate you that this was processed via SuperStream. If this was manually processed, the source would be showing as manual. Now, looking into the rollovers and release authorities, it is mandatory from 1st of October 2021 by ATO that all the rollover ins, rollover outs, and release authorities to be processed via SuperStream. To use a SuperStream for rollover purposes, it is important that your SMSF should have a valid ESA. If you're using class to initiate these rollovers, it would be SMSF data flow. A valid fund ABN, that means the fund ABN should be complying and registered status with the ATO. And all the up-to-date details needs to be recorded with the ATO, especially if this is a newly established entity. Your SMSF's unique bank account needs to be updated with the ATO. So likely this part fails in most of the times for a rollover in for a new established entity. To ensure that your tax agent setup is correct in class, and the fund needs to be active in class in order to use the SuperStream purposes for rollovers. We do have a readiness checklist, which you can review in detail of all the things that you could check and validate before you initiate a rollover. We also have a summary of articles that's going to give you step-by-step instructions for each. If you have any questions regarding how to set up a notification for SuperStream or how to initiate a rollover in or rollover out, what happens when you initiate a rollover out and what are the next detailed steps and so on. If you want to know more details about SuperStream processing, we already have a recorded webinar, and here's the link for you to review at a later stage. So we will mainly focus today on what transactions are included and excluded to be processed via SuperStream. So say, for instance, if your fund is rolling over between an SMSF to an SMSF or APRA to SMSF or vice versa, this is going to be included to be processed via SuperStream, or any contributions or all the release authorities that are listed below. So only these transactions are the ones that are included to be processed via SuperStream. The ones which are excluded are, say for instance, if your ABN is non-complying status with the ATO, you cannot use this rollovers for SuperStream. Via SuperStream, it needs to be checked with the ATO, first reinstate the status back to complying fund, or you could confirm with the auditor if they are happy to be processed manually. If there is any non-cash transfer between a fund to another fund, so say for instance, if you're transferring shares from one fund to another, is likely mainly called as an in-specie rollovers. In this instance, you would have to process this manually. If there's any internal fund rollovers, or for instance, if there's a contribution split for spouse contribution, as an example, it needs to be processed manually. If there is any family law settlement, and if you would like to roll over funds between one member to another within the same entity, you will need to be processing a manual rollover in and a manual rollover out accordingly, and it's not via superstring. Once your contribution standards and all the transactions have been loaded in class for your cash, that means next step would be to process buys and sells of your investments. This is to ensure that all your holdings in your class records are matching with your investment source documents. By matching, which means that you have to reconcile all your holdings, the quantity of the investments in the class records is recorded and matching as per your investments. That means all the purchases and disposals needs to be processed. To record buys and sells in class, we have a few approaches. First is to activate a broker or a wrap data feed if the fund has invested via broker or wrap account. If there is no feed set up or available in class, you have certain options such as downloading an Excel transaction loader template, and you can use this template to enter all the buys and sell transactions. This is mainly used if you have a fund that is actively trading in the transactions for buys and sells, and you already have all the details in an Excel or a CSV format that you can copy and paste to the loader. Let's take a quick example. To download the Excel loader firstly, you would go to the fund level. At the business level, you go to transactions, Excel transaction loader, select the relevant brand and click here. And that's going to download an Excel transaction loader template. Again, you would be, before opening the file, you would right click on the file, go to properties and unblock the macros. Let's take a quick example. I have already pre-filled all the details in a transaction loader tab for demo purposes. The overview tab would suggest and give you the list of all the transactions you processed in the various tabs. So in this case, I have processed 7 transactions in portfolio transactions tab. This loader is mainly utilized if you would like to load any cash transactions via this loader, or the portfolio tab is mainly used for recording all the acquisitions and disposals. All the transactions that you enter, it needs to be validated. If there is anything in red color giving you an error message, that means you need to ensure that the relevant detail is correct or not. So the first column is the fund code. You can find the fund code by going to the relevant fund. So this is my fund level. Go to step 1 data loading into the fund. Here's the hashtag underneath the fund name, which is going to give you the fund code. So you copy and paste. Again, ensure you're pasting only values and text. This column is going to give you a holding reference type, whether you are selecting a holding account or a whole account number or a HIN or SRN. So basically the holding account can be found in the investments browse holding account screen. The holding code is basically you're using this holding code to load the loader. If you're using the holding code option, ensure that the holding code reference is matching as per the browse holding investment screen account. That is WDS, Sundry, BHP as an example in this case. The event type, whether this is acquisition, over on the dropdown, and ensure if there is any dropdown, you select the relevant options. If you manually fill in or copy paste, then your transaction loader could be broken and you would have to re-download a new template. In this case, again, the code will be copied as the reference holding reference code. You enter all the relevant details in the pink color, which is mandatory. It's showing as valid code, which means the code should not have any space, for instance, in this case. Once I fix all the details, this will be validated. You go to the overview tab to check, and it's now all validated and in green color, which previously was showing in red color. To submit these transactions, you ensure that the relevant business code and the brand code is correct. Click on Submit Portfolio Transactions. Click to get upload code. Get upload code. I will enter my login credentials now and copy code. So earlier, it was asking for an authenticator code from your app. Right now, because I already saved my application for 24 hours, it will not allow you to prompt to enter the authenticator code. So you just copy the upload code, come back to the loader, paste, and click to continue. And we will wait for the transactions to be loaded and to give you a message whether this was successful or not. So it shows you that the file was submitted to the server. Okay, let's have a look if this was submitted successfully. So we go to the business level, go to transactions, browse loaded files, and the status should show as successful. Now, in my case, I just loaded the file on 13th of Feb and is showing as partly failed. Let's have a quick look on why. And there is a warning that the system was unable to process this transaction because of the located security issue does not support the events generated. Let's have a look in regards to what missing piece we did in the portfolio tab. So firstly, it is important that all these investment holding codes that you entered in the transaction loader should be added in the relevant fund. If these holding codes does not exist in the fund level, the Excel transaction loader will give you an error. So in this case, I do not have any investment account with Woolworths. So and there is an investment added in the loader. So for that to add, for the transaction to be added into your fund level, first you will go to investments, create the investment account. If this is a listed account, you would select the listed security issue code and click on activate. Secondly, for any managed funds, the transaction loader will not approve for any listed security acquisition. So it's going to be an unlisted security acquisition. And for all the other listed securities, you will use the listed security acquisition option. And now let's go back and click on submit for portfolio transactions. And once this has been submitted, you can go back to your business level to check whether this transaction was loaded successfully or not. So you refresh the screen just to see the new status of the loaded file, and I will see this was successfully processed. Let's go back to the fund level to see any transactions. So you can either check by going to transactions, match transaction screen, and you will see all the business transactions have been loaded successfully. Now, in this case, some of these transactions are duplicated because the previous file was partially failed. If you would like to delete this file, you click on it and delete it. What this is going to do is any partial transactions that were loaded by the transaction loader, it is going to be deleted. And if you refresh your fund, it's going to delete all those transactions. So even if you made a mistake by entering a wrong fund code in the Excel transaction loader, in this case, you also have an option by deleting the file and entering the correct fund code and ensuring that you're done entering these transactions and loading the transactions to the correct fund. If you do not want to use the Excel transaction loader, you can also go to the relevant fund, go to investments, transactions to process the buys and sells, investment buy, select the listed security acquisition or unlisted security acquisition, and fill in all the relevant details and click on submit. For sell, you will do the similar process. And once all your investments, buys and sells have been completed, you will check the investments browse holding account screen to check what are the quantities you have processed and what is the cost base for those investments. Once your buys and sells of investments have been completed, you would have to process a corporate action. So a corporate action is basically an event which is initiated by a public listed or a private company, which affects the securities, whether the quantity or the cost base. So to ensure the quantity, the cost base of the investment held by the fund is correct and matching as per your investment source document, you would have to process the corporate actions. Some of the corporate action details, which are available in the ASX reference point announcement data, will be available for you to automatically process those corporate actions in the fund level. So you can go to investments, browse corporate actions, and you will be able to see the relevant automated template for those investments for completion. If these automated templates are not available, and if this is an unlisted security, you can go and process this manually by going to transactions, investment corporate actions, select the relevant corporate action, and fill in manual details. More processing wise for corporate actions will be discussed in the next webinar series, but here are the examples of the ones that are available in class. Now, generate income functionality is basically once all your investments of acquisition disposals have been processed, if you have no data feed set up, you have an option to use this functionality to create the business events for the income, which is announced by the securities. This function will automatically generate either dividend or distribution investments for listed securities. It is applicable for both Australian and foreign listed investments. So please make sure that you need to process all the acquisitions, disposals, and corporate actions before using this feature so that your system ensures that the system automatically generates the correct amount when you click on generate income functionality. So you go to transactions, match transactions, click on generate income. So the system is automatically going to calculate all the cash amounts by the announcements made by the investment multiplied by the number of units. And again, more details will be provided in the next webinar. Once all your transactions have been processed, you go to investments, browse holding accounts to see an overview of the quantity, your cost base, your market value. You have an option to select as at date. So if you're processing only FY 2022, so you select the date and all the details will populate only as at this date. You can also have an option to show only zero balances, and you have an option to suspend these investment accounts if they do not exist in the relevant account by clicking on the investment, edit, and submit. And you can also hide the zero balances, and you want to ensure that you're reviewing only those investments that have a quantity or market price or the cost base as at a particular date. So now that all your data is loaded into your fund, the next step would be to match the transactions and do the reconciliation. So the next webinar would be scheduled on 14th of March to discuss about the step 2 transaction processing and reconciliation. And we have provided all the webinar links in below for step 3 and step 4 as well. So busting the myth, class cannot do journal entries. But in reality, class will automatically create journal entry in the background when transactions are processed and matched. Thank you.